All right, everybody, let's jump into this. Today, we are talking about employment discrimination here in Washington State.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is, and we're going to break it down using this brochure I have from the Washington State Human Rights Commission.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to cut through all the legal mumbo-jumbo.
The jargon.
Exactly, and help you understand your rights in the workplace.
Awesome.
So first things first.
Right to it.
What is the Washington State Human Rights Commission, or WSHRC? What's it all about?
Right. So in a nutshell, the WSHRC is dedicated to eliminating and preventing discrimination.
They're the good guys.
They are, and they've actually been around for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were established way back in 1949 by the Washington State Legislature.
Wow, so they've seen a lot.
They have, and get this, they actually have the power to enforce the Washington law against discrimination.
Oh, so it's not just like a suggestion box.
No, they mean business.
Yeah.
And you can find that law in Chapter 49.60 of the Revised Code of Washington.
So the RCW? Okay, so this isn't just some random committee. They have real legal authority.
Oh, yeah.
But what exactly is employment discrimination?
Right, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those things that gets thrown around a lot, but
It is.
what does it actually mean in the real world, like in a workplace?
So it boils down to this: it's unfair treatment at work because of who you are, not your skills, or how well you do your job.
Okay, I think I get that.
It's about being treated differently based on what we call protected class status.
Protected class, what does that mean?
So in Washington State, when it comes to employment, we're talking about a surprisingly long list of protected characteristics.
Okay, lay it on me.
Of course, the ones you might expect: race, color, national origin, religion,
Right.
sex, and that includes pregnancy,
Of course.
sexual orientation, and gender identity.
Gotcha.
But it goes even further than that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We're also talking about things like veteran or military status disability, and that includes even perceived disability, so even if you don't have a documented disability.
Okay.
But an employer thinks you do, that's still protected.
Interesting.
Whether you use a service animal is also protected.
I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, as well as HIV or hepatitis C status.
Wow, the list keeps growing.
It does, doesn't it?
What else?
Let's see, marital status, your age, as long as you're 40 or older.
Ah, so age discrimination is a thing.
It is, and then there's something called whistleblower status for state employees.
Whistleblower status.
Yeah, so if you work for a state agency and you report some kind of wrongdoing or illegal activity.
Oh, so you're protected from retaliation.
Exactly, you're protected.
That is a long list. I bet a lot of people listening have no idea
Probably not.
that they were protected in so many ways.
It's good to know your rights.
It is. But how does this actually happen in a workplace? Is it always like super obvious?
Not necessarily. It can be very subtle, or sometimes it's blatant and in your face. But we can kind of break it down into a few main types.
Okay, I'm ready.
So first up, you have something called disparate treatment.
Disparate treatment.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, and this is where you're treated differently than your coworkers who are similar to you in every way, except for being in a different protected class.
So, for example, if I'm the only woman on my team and I keep getting passed over for promotions,
Right.
even though I'm qualified, and then some guy who's less qualified gets it every time.
Yeah, and you suspect it's because you're a woman.
Exactly. Could that be disparate treatment?
That could definitely be a case of disparate treatment. Yeah.
Okay, I see how that works.
Now, another type is called disparate impact.
Disparate impact. Okay.
And this one is a little trickier because it's when a company policy or practice seems neutral on the surface,
Okay.
but it actually disproportionately affects people in a certain protected group.
Like that height requirement thing.
Exactly. Like if a company says we only hire people over 6 feet tall.
Right. Which obviously is going to impact more women than men.
Right. They might not say we're not hiring women,
Right.
but the impact is the same.
Okay, so even if they don't mean to discriminate,
Right.
the result is what matters.
Exactly. The impact matters.
Gotcha. What else?
All right. So then you have harassment or a hostile work environment.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's heard of that one.
Right. And this one is all about how your workplace feels.
Okay.
Do you feel unsafe, uncomfortable, or like you just don't belong?
Right. So it's not just physical violence. It could be like
Exactly.
offensive jokes
It could be.
or just constantly being excluded because of your race or your religion.
Yeah, or your gender or anything like that.
Right.
The legal standard is whether a reasonable person would find the environment hostile enough that they would want to quit.
So reasonable person. That's like a jury of your peers, right?
Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
imagine a jury of your peers Would they agree that what you're experiencing is over the line?
Okay, so it's not just about being annoyed or having a bad day.
All right.
It has to be really bad.
It does.
Got it. Okay, what else?
Let's see, another type is failure to accommodate.
Failure to accommodate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is when an employer doesn't make reasonable adjustments for an employee's disability or their sincerely held religious beliefs.
Okay, so for example, if an employee needs a wheelchair ramp to get into the building,
Right.
or they need to take breaks during the day to pray,
Exactly.
their employer has to try to make that work.
Within reason, yes.
Right. So the accommodation has to be reasonable,
Oh, right.
but they can't just ignore it.
They can't.
Got it. Okay. And I think you mentioned one more.
Ah, yes. The last one is retaliation.
Retaliation. Okay.
And this is a big one. This is when you're punished for speaking out against discrimination, even if your claim isn't ultimately proven.
So even if I report something to HR
Right.
and it turns out it wasn't actually illegal discrimination,
Right.
they can't punish me for reporting it in the first place.
That's right. They can't demote you, cut your hours, give you bad performance reviews,
Oh, wow.
or fire you just because you spoke up.
That's really good to know.
Yeah, no one should be afraid to come forward if they think something is wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what if you do find yourself in that situation? Like, what can you actually do about it? So that's the big question, right? Like, okay, you think something's wrong, but what do you actually do?
Right. How do you take action?
And luckily, this WSHRC brochure lays it all out. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, they make it pretty straightforward.
So first thing, you got to file a complaint.
Right. That's step one.
But we got to be quick about it. There's a time limit. Right?
There's a statute of limitations.
Fancy legal words.
Right. So you usually have 6 months from the date the discrimination happened
Okay. 6
to
months.
file that complaint.
6 months. It's not forever,
Yeah,
but it gives you some time
it does.
to kind of gather your thoughts and figure out what happened. And,
That exacting the
like-
people.
like, get your ducks in a row.
Exactly. But hold on. Earlier, we were talking about whistleblower cases.
Right.
Those have a different timeline, right?
You're right. They do. Whistleblower cases actually have a much longer time frame.
Oh, really? How long?
You have 2 years from when that alleged harm occurred. 2 years. Wow. Okay, so a bit more breathing room there.
Okay,
Okay, so let's say I think I have a case and I've got my complaint all written out.
Okay.
What next? Do I just like send it off to the WSHRC and they handle it from there?
Well, not so fast. Before you hit send, you want to make sure your case falls under their jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction. Okay, so basically who they have the power to help.
That's it.
Gotcha.
So in Washington, they mostly handle cases with employers who have 8 or more employees.
Okay.
So if you work for a tiny company,
Right, like a really small business.
exactly, the WSHRC might not be the right place to go.
Gotcha. It's all about knowing where to go for help.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say my employer has enough employees and my issue is something the WSHRC can handle.
Right.
What happens next? Do they just take my word for it?
Not quite. The WSHRC acts as a neutral investigator.
Neutral. Balance.
They gather evidence from both sides, you and the employer.
Okay, so it's not like they're automatically on your side.
No, they're there to figure out what happened.
Just because you filed the complaint.
Exactly. Think of them like detectives, you know?
I'm like that.
They're looking for clues, interviewing witnesses.
Looking at documents.
Exactly. They're trying to piece together what really happened.
Okay, so that's actually pretty fair.
It is.
It means they're coming at it objectively,
That's the goal.
not just siding with whoever cried first.
Exactly.
Okay, so what kind of evidence are we talking about here?
Well, it depends on your situation.
Right, of course.
But think emails, text messages, performance reviews,
Okay.
anything that backs up your claims.
Right, so even things like company policies or maybe statements from people who saw something happen.
Absolutely. Witness testimony is important.
So it's really like building a case.
It is.
You need more than just your word to prove what happened.
Right. You need to be able to back it up.
Okay, so after all this investigating, what happens? Does the WSHRC make a decision?
They do, once they've looked at all the evidence, they issue a finding.
A finding, okay.
And there are 2 possible outcomes. They might find reasonable cause to believe discrimination occurred.
Reasonable cause, okay. That sounds promising.
It means they believe there's enough evidence to support your claim.
Okay, so if they find reasonable cause, what happens next?
Oh, then they try to work with you and the employer to reach a settlement.
So it's not about automatically punishing the employer?
No, not necessarily. The goal is to remedy the situation.
Right, make things right.
Exactly, and to prevent it from happening again.
Gotcha.
So a settlement could include things like back pay,
Okay.
maybe changes to company policies, or even training for employees.
So it's really about making things right,
It is.
not just about pointing fingers.
That's right.
But what if they don't find reasonable cause?
Right.
Is that it? Is it all over?
If they find no reasonable cause,
Meaning they don't think there's enough evidence.
right, then the case is closed.
Okay.
But it's important to remember you can still choose to pursue a lawsuit on your own.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's not the end of the road.
Not necessarily.
But it definitely makes things harder.
It does.
Right, you're kind of on your own at that point.
Yeah, going through the WSHRC process can be really helpful
Right.
in gathering evidence and just understanding your options.
So it's a big decision.
It is.
And it's important to really consider all your options.
Absolutely.
So this WSHRC investigation is a crucial step.
It is.
Even if it doesn't automatically solve the problem,
Right.
it helps you figure out where you stand.
Exactly.
And I think it also ensures a level of fairness and objectivity,
It does.
which is really important,
It's about having a system in place
right?
that protects people and makes sure everyone gets a fair shake.
Exactly. But let's be honest, this is all pretty heavy stuff.
It is.
Legal processes can be really intimidating,
They can be.
especially when you're dealing with something as sensitive as discrimination.
Absolutely.
Like this brochure is great for understanding the steps.
right. The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. But what about the emotional side of things? I mean,
Yeah.
it can feel really overwhelming. Like you're all alone dealing with all this anger and frustration.
Absolutely. And even fear sometimes.
Right. So what can someone do to take care of themselves during this whole process? Like it feels like you need a good support system.
You do. It's so important to have people you can talk to.
Friends, family,
Yeah, people who care about you and will listen without judgment.
a therapist even.
Absolutely. Having that outlet can make a world of difference.
It's that whole, you don't have to go through this alone thing.
Exactly.
And the WSHRC can actually be part of that support system too.
oh, absolutely.
It's not just about the investigation.
Right. They're not just detectives.
They also offer like guidance and information.
They do. They have resources, people you can talk to who understand what you're going through.
So it's not just about the legal stuff.
Right. They get the human side of it too.
They really want to help.
They do. And sometimes just having that information and knowing your options can make you feel a little more in control.
Right. It's about empowering yourself.
Ex-
And that's really what this whole deep dive is all about.
It is.
Giving you the knowledge to handle these tricky situations.
Knowledge is power.
It really is. So just remember all those protected classes we talked about.
Right. That long list.
If you're in any of those categories, you are covered by the law.
You are.
The Washington Law Against Discrimination has your back.
It does.
And if you're ever unsure if something's wrong, document everything.
Yes. Write it down. Keep track of what's happening.
Dates, times, names, the more detail, the better.
Exactly. Because it can be hard to remember later on, especially if it was a stressful situation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So write it down, save those emails, take screenshots, anything that can help you remember the specifics.
It's like building your case.
It is. And all that stuff can be valuable evidence if you decide to file a complaint.
Good point. And of course, you can always reach out to the WSHRC directly for help.
Absolutely. They're the experts.
They can walk you through the process, answer your questions.
They're there to help.
Their website is www.hum.wa.gov,
Easy to remember.
or you can call them at 1-800-233-3247.
Don't hesitate to reach out.
They're there for you. And remember, at the end of the day, you have a voice.
You do.
Your experiences matter.
They do.
Don't let anyone silence you or make you feel like you don't deserve to be treated with respect.
It's about standing up for yourself.
And standing up for what's right.
Absolutely. And sometimes that means speaking out even when it's hard.
It is, but it's worth it.
It is. And by speaking out, you're not just helping yourself.
Oh, that's a good point.
You're also potentially helping other people.
Right, who might be going through the same thing.
Exactly. You're creating a ripple effect.
I like that.
That can lead to real change.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's all take a moment to reflect.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced or witnessed something at work that felt discriminatory? What can we all do to create more inclusive and equitable workplaces for everybody?
These are big questions,
They are.
but important ones, and it's a conversation we need to keep having.
Absolutely. And this deep dive is just a starting point.
Right at the tip of the iceberg.
There are tons of resources out there, folks.
There are.
Check out the WSHRC website. Look for local organizations that fight discrimination. Keep learning and keep asking questions.
Keep the conversation going.
Your voice matters. Your rights matter.
They do?
And together, we can create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive in the workplace free from discrimination.
Absolutely. That's the dream.
That's a wrap on this deep dive, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered.